Are you ready?
Can you give me like a minute?
Am I going to need to put the whole music in here again?
I know. Please don't.
Hello, and welcome to Book Retorts. I'm Sam.
I'm Danielle.
And this is the podcast about sharing your weird media finds with your friends who don't know what you're talking about.
But I do know what you're talking about.
Well, I should hope so after 3 previous episodes about this book.
No guarantees.
In case you're somehow unaware, this is part 4 of our Fool on the Hill recap, the book by Matt Ruff. And Danielle, for those of our listeners who somehow decided to jump into part 4 of this nonsense, why don't you summarize what happened in the last part so that they can get caught up?
Okay. And then Sam will continue with his epic finale of Fool on the Hill.
We're definitely going to finish this today. I can't do it again. I'm done.
I can't do it again either, so. Okay. Oh, gosh. No G.
Good start. Good start.
I genuinely do. Sam, I really don't think about these things between recordings.
I know you don't, Danielle, but I'm surprised that they completely exit your brain in entirety.
They usually don't. Usually when you prompt me, I can remember chunks of the story. Last week was an exception to that rule because I literally could not remember anything.
I'll be honest, Danielle, last week's was me just summarizing my previous summary again.
It was terrible. I think I'll do better this week. I just need prompting, I suspect. Okay. So where had we ended with book 2?
Danielle, and I can tell you where we ended with book 2. I'm going to tell you where you began with book 3, which is your favorite part.
Halloween party?
Halloween party!
Yay! Okay, so they're having a Halloween party.
Who?
The Tolkien house, right?
Yeah.
Which they all got invited to by somebody mysterious, probably Calliope.
Yep.
And they all show up.
Who?
The main character, Sam. They all show up.
Yeah, what are their names, Danielle? I don't want to say how many of these you actually remember.
So there's George, the main guy. There is all the Bohemians.
Yeah.
So Lionheart and Ragnarok.
Yes.
And the Grey Ladies.
Sure.
And, Preacher.
That's all the ones you need to know about.
Okay, so they all show up. I'm getting better with the names. This helps when you do 3 episodes back to back.
I was going to say.
The same names. So they all show up to the Halloween party, and it's held in the cavernous area of the Tolkien house. Is that correct?
Yeah, in the underground woods,
Right.
Lothlorien.
That has the big dome thing over the top, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the bottomless pit.
In the bottomless pit. Yeah. And then, I don't know, there's a party going on, and at one point the sex doll comes to life and touches somebody. And,
oh, boy, Danielle.
And then George and Aurora Borealis Smith make out accidentally, quote unquote.
Yeah. So the sex doll briefly grasps Brian Galloway's hand.
Sure. Brian is the warring boyfriend who doesn't make it through this section of the book.
Yeah, it's not as the boyfriend, at least.
And so they're wandering through, what happens is they're wandering through this dome area, and then this magic fog comes in and kind of covers everything up.
Yeah.
And so, what's his face? George is looking around for his girlfriend Calliope, and he sees a shepherdess with a hook, and it thinks it's her because that's what she's dressed up as.
Yep.
And so he follows her into the fog, and then ends up finding Aurora, who is dressed in I don't know.
Similarly as Red Riding Hood.
Red Riding Hood, and she sees him, and he's in a cape or whatever, and she thinks that he's the prince or whatever he's dressed up as, or whatever Brian is dressed up as.
Prince Charming,
okay.
And Brian is dressed up as the Earl of Sandwich.
Oh, that's right. And so they both are wearing capes, and so she sees the cape, thinks that it's Brian, and then they start making out because apparently they can't tell who each other are even when they're 2 inches from each other's face, and kissing feels exactly the same. Which, whatever.
Yeah, no, we neither of us buy that for a second.
So they're making out. At some point, they, I think, realize that the other person is not who they thought they were.
When Brian screams because of his encounter with the Rubbermaid.
Okay, yeah. So he runs into the magic sex doll that's magic for no reason. And that's the end of that scene. Yes?
Yes. Don't forget, the sprites are also there telling stories.
And they're sitting on somebody's passed out body.
Yeah. And the story is just about the war for Rasferret and includes some of the backstory, which, if you check out our Patreon this week, you will hear our interpretation for Rasferret's background.
Because
so,
the
check that out.
book doesn't have a background on him. So
Nope,
we
not
made it
at
better. And, let's see. Then after the Halloween party, what happens after the Halloween party?
Well, who did Ragnarok attend the party with?
One of the gray ladies, right?
No.
No, the girl. I mean, it was the girl,
Yes.
but what was her name?
That's a great question, Danielle.
I don't know her name.
It's Jinsei.
Jinsei. I knew it started with a J. I just couldn't remember what it was. Jinsei. She is into Preacher, but went to the party with Ragnarok.
Yeah, because he asked.
Yeah, and Ragnarok likes her, so love triangle. And it doesn't end well.
I mean, in the briefest sense.
Love triangle that doesn't end well. And she ends up leaving with Preacher or something, doesn't she?
Right, because Ragnarok gets completely blotto.
That's right. And he kind of goes home or passes out or something. He's no
He
longer...
basically passes out at Tolkien House. Preacher takes her back to his dorm.
Mm-hmm. And they decide that they're gonna not be obvious about their ardent love for each other, so they make out in the lobby of the dorm. And then Ragnarok walks in.
Yep.
So...
Yay!
Bummer.
Yep.
And then he leaves and he's really mad, understandably. And he walks off and Preacher can't get him to talk to him.
Yep.
Which is sad later on in the story.
Yes, it is.
So, I don't know. They continue to be a couple. I don't know what happens after that, Sam.
There's Thanksgiving.
Does that matter? Everybody just goes back to their family.
No, because remember, George and Aurora spend Thanksgiving together.
Oh, that's right. Before they get together, I forgot. Brian leaves.
We had thoughts about this.
Brian leaves, and then she spends time with George, and they get to know each other better in a slightly biblical sense, and so decide that they like each other and kind of cheat on their partners, respectively.
Yeah. Also, there's a bunch of dog philosophy that I'm going to let you skip because I skipped it in my summary. That's totally
we didn't
fair.
talk about it.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying. It was there and we skipped it. And if you want to hear more about it, read the book.
Yeah. So now Aurora and George are pretty much cheating on their partners. Poor Brian and Calliope, though. I don't think Calliope cares because that's...
No, she's into this. Just what she wants to happen.
Yeah, she's making it happen. But Brian is, just a stupid guy in his 20s and probably will be a better human being later, I hope.
Yeah, this doesn't embitter him.
Then what happens?
Do you remember Christopher Robin?
Oh, yeah. So there's this professor guy. What is he? Homeless? I don't know.
Physics major.
Okay, physics major.
Physics graduate student,
That's
something
right.
like that.
And he's carrying around the supposed bomb with him that he has made that is Calliope gave him... Oh, God, this story's weird. Calliope gave him gumdrops. Gobstoppers that make him have crazy thoughts. And so he has put together this supposed bomb that he's taking to the center of campus or something.
Do you remember what's happening at the center of campus? Some
protest probably with the Hooters.
Yeah, the Blue Zebra Hooter Patrol.
Yeah. Anyway, so he's there and he's going to set this bomb off, and Calliope takes George over there and is like, hey, you've got to solve this problem. This is one of your I don't know, tests.
Training exercises.
And he's like,
do you remember what she gives him?
No, I don't.
A cowboy hat.
Oh, yeah. It's stupid. He's wearing a cowboy hat. He goes down to talk to Christopher Robin, and they find out at some point the bomb's not real. That's filled with gobstoppers or something. Yeah.
George uses his magic wind calling powers to cause Christopher Robin to fail, and somehow the Bohemians see this from the hill with their picnicking on and assume, oh yeah, George's magic. Cool.
That's right. They're up on the hill picnicking, just watching the whole thing happen as one would when there is a bomb in your school. And they see the things with their eagle eyes, I guess, and decide that
they have opera glasses or
whatever,
or like
that he definitely called the wind. That is definitely what happened.
Yeah, right. They assume he's magic. That's the first thing the conclusion they jump to.
To be fair, they're the Bohemians, and they might be high.
Very possible.
So, I don't know. And then what happens, Sam?
I like how I'm the one summarizing.
As long as you prompt it, I'm good. I've summarized everything. I just need a prompt. I don't remember what order anything happens in.
That's fair. This book is very loosey-goosey with interleaving the stories. Calliope disappears.
Sure. And he's distraught. George is distraught.
Yes.
And super mad about it. But eventually he ends up back with Aurora.
So he gets super sad and he goes on a snowstorm, underdressed, to be all like mopey and depressed out in the snow, and he ends up at the Boneyard.
Oh, and he almost hurts himself. Well, he does hurt himself.
Well, he does. Yes,
but
he falls.
Mr. Sunshine is like, oh, no, we can't have you die yet. And so he has Luther, the dog, show up and like wake him up and get him off the property or whatever.
Yep, get him out, lead him out there so he doesn't freeze to death, and he runs into Aurora, who was out looking for him because she had a premonition.
Oh, that's right, stupid. It is.
I'm not saying you're not wrong, but
everything is prompted in this book. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, she's just like, George might be in trouble. She like runs off into the
Look, I gotta be honest, Mr. Sunshine is kind of a crappy storyteller, and we'll get into that.
It makes me mad. And so they end up together.
No, not quite yet.
Well, he ends up like she ends up finding him, doesn't she?
Right, and remember, he saves her from being hit by a car by using his magic wind powers again, then collapses.
Oh yeah, sort of. Kind of remember that.
And they end up in the hospital talking. And this is what, remember, Aurora's like, confesses to him.
That she likes him?
Yeah, that she thinks he's been set up. Yeah.
And then she wants to take him to meet her dad.
Kind of. She's like, I love you and you're going to love me too. And Brian proposed to me.
Yeah, but she doesn't know. But she didn't say yes or no to Brian. Because poor Brian.
Yeah. The important part, Danielle, is that she's doing all this love confession stuff to George while still ostensibly dating Brian.
Which is terrible. Poor Brian. So then what happens?
Good question. Remember, Aurora wants to take him back to Wisconsin to meet her father. And on the way there, who do they pick up, Danielle?
They pick up Luther in the car. And Luther's like shouts out the car to some random cat or something like, tell Blackjack I'm leaving.
Yep. And then just disappears. You made it through that book.
Is that everything? There's more that happens though.
Oh yeah, that's the end of book 3.
Okay.
Book 2.
Like,
now to book 3, Danielle.
I remember other things. There has to have been more.
Oh, there's so much more, Danielle.
So she's at the dad's house, and the dad's like super into her because she's like a little
super into him.
Or sorry, yes, the dad is super into. Dad is super into George because he is like much more
less conventional.
Yeah,
than
that's a good way to put
Brian.
it. Less conventional than Brian, and they like get high together or something. And I don't know. They convince Aurora that she should too. So
yeah, and also he briefly interrogates George and claims he can tell if he's alive by looking at him.
That's right. It's a thing in the story. And then what's her face? Oh, so Luther ends up having some kind of vision, right?
Yeah, remember that Mr. Sunshine sends a message to the underworld through a pneumatic tube?
Oh, that's right. For reasons.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, he has to send a pneumatic tube message to the underworld to get them to cooperate. And he gets a vision of Moses, the dog that died in the beginning. That was like his I don't know.
His father figure, his mentor.
Tells him, like, you got to leave this place. This isn't for you. You got to go back to the college. You've done your trek before. You can do the trek again from Wisconsin to Ithaca because that's fun in the winter.
Yeah, well, his trek last time was from like the Bronx to Ithaca, so same thing.
So Luther leaves, right? The door blows open. He runs off.
Yep.
And at some point, she breaks up with Brian. We assume that happened.
Yeah, that happened way before that.
Right. I was just adding to the story so our listeners know, and that she's not just dating him. Well, she's dating Brian still.
That'd be funny.
And I know other stuff.
Do you remember what happens to Rasferret?
He wakes up. Oh, so Preacher goes into the thing, right? So something happened before
Yes. So there is the creepy sex scene between George and Aurora where she leads him up to a hayloft where Mr. Sunshine, when she was 12, gave her a bottle of wine to hide there.
Well, she didn't drink it. She did hide it, and they decided to drink it.
And during that scene back in Ithaca, Preacher and Jinsei are wandering around and they end up in the Boneyard.
And Preacher ends up finding the box. The grub that Rasferret is hiding in. Not hiding in. He was trapped in. And what's her face? Jinsei is like, don't open the box. And he's like, nah, I'm going to open the box.
He does open the box.
And
to be fair, he is compelled by Mr. Sunshine, probably.
Probably. So he ends up pulling open the box. He takes like a piece of the metal and saves it too from the box.
There's like there's a silver ribbon around the box.
Yeah, he saves that. Off. And he... just as he's like opening the box before he can see what's inside, does a bird come? What happens?
So remember the magic bird made of snow and ice that Mr. Sunshine sent as a messenger?
Sure.
Attacks him and scares them off just as the box is opened.
Right. So he doesn't get to see what's inside of it, but now the grub, I guess, is on a rampage to kill them.
Nope.
He's
free and powerless.
And well, I know that, but at some point they go after Preacher and Jinsei.
Yeah, but that's like way down the line, Danielle.
Okay, well, he's powerless. He doesn't have any power, and he makes some kind of, I don't remember who he talks to. Who does he talk to make
the
some
bird,
kind of
the
power?
messenger bird,
The
which
messenger
is
bird?
there on behalf of Mr. Sunshine.
So basically is like, I'll give you some power.
So he's like, I'll give you power. You'll get your power back. It'll slowly grow until the Ides of March, because remember, the Ides are very important. And in return, you'll have to fight a big person, a human this time, instead of just sprites. And if you win, you get to keep your powers.
Right. And the grub really doesn't have any choice in the matter since he is powerless. So he says yes. And
also, not much of a choice. Like, yeah, I'll get the free power, sure.
Right. So he does that, and then he calls the end. This is when he makes the rats animate with their little crossbows.
He makes the rats. Yes.
Makes them stand up for reasons unknown.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, so yeah, he calls the animals to him and he makes the rats animate, and now they're his little soldiers.
Yes, that's correct, Danielle. So Rasferret has his army.
Okay.
Or at least the beginnings of it.
Now does he go after Preacher and Jinsei?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, and also Hobart and stuff. We'll get to that.
Will we? I don't remember what happens.
All right, so let's start with the Preacher and Jinsei part. What happens here?
Bad things.
Yes, okay, moving on. Next part.
I don't know.
Well done.
That something happens. Jinsei's in a library. Preacher's doing
She's working late on New Year's.
Preacher's out doing something, and he gets attacked by... Is he the one that gets attacked by the sex doll?
Okay.
It's all a blur, Sam.
Jinsei is working in the library. She and Preacher have been invited to Tolkien House for a New Year's Eve party with their friends, Nildoran and Fujiko.
Does Preacher go?
Preacher goes alone because Jinsei decides she needs to work late for whatever reason. The library can't wait.
Oh,
but he gives her a bracelet.
Right. He gives her the little silver bracelet from the silver rope that was around the sketchy box. So he's at the party and he...
No.
What? He is at the party. He just said that
he never gets to the party, Danielle.
He doesn't? I thought he was at the party and then gets chased by the thing in the sex doll in the blanket or whatever.
Not Ragnarok. So what happens is first, Nildoran and Fujiko are having sex in the lawn at Lothlorien.
Sure.
And they are scared after the lights go out and something starts approaching them.
And they run to like the magic circle.
Yes.
Magic rock circle.
Yeah, and then the doll's like, well, I guess you're safe. You called base, so I'm heading out.
Yes, because the doll randomly becomes like not sentient, but alive.
Animate by Rasferret.
So, because, why not?
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to possess a killing machine, why not make it a sex doll?
So it's chasing them, and then what?
They escape, so it leaves.
Mm-hmm. And at some point, it puts a blanket over itself, a sheet.
Yeah, it puts a sheet over itself as a form of disguise for some reason.
It's a ghost.
That's much less creepy than the animate sex doll. I mean, that actually is less creepy than animate sex doll. Yeah. As soon as I said it, I knew it. So it encounters Preacher where?
I don't know, like somewhere where there's a ravine where he gets to fall into.
On the suspension bridge over the gorge.
Sure, but that's not in the Tolkien house?
No.
No, I thought it was. In my head, it always.
Oh yeah, no, it's not the bottomless pit. This is just a random gorge.
Okay, well, and beats him there and chases him, and then...
Nope.
It
just smacks him upside the head and throws him over the railing.
Okay, kind of chases him. Yeah, he does. Yes, he dies.
He doesn't get chased. He gets taken by surprise and immediately killed. It is the most ignominious death ever.
Okay, yeah, he does. And he dies. And the end, Preacher. And it's so sad because Ragnarok never gets to, like, have his, come to Jesus moment with him and forgive him. Yeah, like, it's really sad. I feel bad for him because he's already had a hard life.
Yeah, we know very little about Preacher, to be fair.
Right, but Ragnarok has a poor, sad life that he now is sadder because his best friend and half-brother basically dies.
Yeah, that's true.
I feel bad for him. I feel more bad for him than any other character in the entire book.
So far, fair.
And then he dies, and then the ghost sex doll goes after Jinsei in the library.
Yeah.
And when it comes for her, the bracelet explodes outwards or something and manages to save her.
Yeah, so she blocks a blow from the mace of the Rubbermaid with her wrist, like by chance, and when the mace hits the bracelet, it shatters, and the Rubbermaid and the mace are repelled backwards from her, giving her a respite.
Exactly, and she manages to make it out. Screw the other librarian that's in the library.
Yep, pretty much.
And then she's like running down the street. She thinks about whether or not she should call the cops, but she doesn't think they're gonna make, or we didn't think they were gonna make it on time. And then
she's trying to get to an emergency phone running through the quad.
Right, and she ends up meeting somebody.
She ends up getting attacked by the Rubbermaid, who chases her and is somehow faster than her because her ankle gives out and she falls.
Right, but then there's like cops and then people show up.
Right, so as she's being strangled to death by the Rubbermaid, she screams just before that happens and some cops hear her. Do you remember their names?
No, they're like Merriweather and something. Blah, blah.
Hollister and Doubleday.
Yeah, exactly. I was correct.
Yeah, close enough, yeah.
100 points to me.
You have the spirit of the names.
Exactly. And they show up and are like, oh my gosh, what is this thing? And they all fight it off. And then at some point it loses its capabilities for some reason.
So they try to fight it off. They get their butts handily kicked. And the Rubbermaid is about to like gouge out Hollister's eyes. And she's freaking out. When Mr. Sunshine's like, I like Hollister too much.
Right.
So let's just,
That's why I didn't remember.
Because it's stupid. And Mr. Sunshine's like, writes a little sentence in his story. And he's like, and then Rasferret was wary from exerting himself and the power fades. Yada, yada, yada. Everyone's safe.
Yeah. So it makes the sex doll lose all its animate power.
Yeah.
And then Jinsei survives.
That's pretty much it. For this
happens?
part, with the exception of the architects planning the Green Dragon Parade.
Oh, that's right. That was towards the end. That was the end of it. Is that they're all bent on getting like the best dragon because the one from the last year collapsed.
Yeah, to make amends. So yeah, there's your summary of the last part, kind of.
Oh my gosh. See, I remember that one a lot better than the other one.
You did very well for a book that's full of disconnected nonsense. What I've realized, and what you're going to learn in this part as we get to the end, is this is not a book, like a single story. It is like 3 unrelated stories, somehow all like mashed together, and we have to read them out of sequence in between all the other unrelated stories in this book.
Okay.
All right, so let's get now to our final part, part 4, Fool on the Hill, the grand finale.
Woo-hoo!
Get excited.
I'm really excited. Thank goodness.
You're excited. I'm so glad I can stop having to stress about trying to remember what happened so I can tell you what happens next.
That would be my turn.
I need a vacation.
That's okay. You'd get a vacation because I get to do the next one or two, Sam.
Yeah.
I might just do one and throw it off.
Don't be mean.
Just one that I'm gonna do like a movie and that's it. And you're gonna only get 1 week off.
Oh, Danielle, I try so hard. I work so hard. My fingers to the bone to bring you this weirdness.
But our listeners need a break. They need a 1 episode. One and done.
Follow your heart, Danielle. That's all I'm going to say.
We'll see. We'll see what I do. I haven't decided.
All right. So we're going to open with the chapter titled Bohemian Requiem, which is a fun tongue twister. Bohemian Requiem. Bohemian Requiem.
Bohemian Requiem.
So Preacher's body is flown back to Brooklyn for burial, and only Lionheart, Miyoko, and Ragnarok are the ones who can attend. George and Aurora hear the news while in Wisconsin, and Lionheart, who is called, asks George to write a story for Preacher that he can read at his wake, because I guess George was good friends with Preacher, although they've never interacted as far as I can tell in this book.
Well, you know what? They have lives outside of the story, Sam.
That's very true. Again, this book is it does a lot where it makes George the most important person from every incident, even when it's not about him.
Well, he is the main character.
I know, but it feels very like, oh, Preacher died, we're all grieving. Hey, George, why don't we make this all about you?
Well, it is about him, though. I mean, if Mr. Sunshine's actually in charge of this whole thing, he's just going to keep sticking George. And even if George didn't know him, he'd be like, for some reason, George was in the area and decided to attend the funeral service.
You know, I agree. And I said I find that very like, Mr. Sunshine, do better.
Yeah, agreed.
Things have been going downhill on the George Aurora honeymoonish vacation.
Already?
Yeah, Luther vanishes and they all go out looking for him and sort of like kills the mood. Also, Brian has been showing up trying to like argue Aurora into getting back together with him until she finally is like, no, and sends him packing. Can
we discuss that like Luther would have already been back if he had just stuck it out with them and ridden in the car back home?
Yeah, no, it's very stupid.
I mean, is he going to learn something on his epic journey or does it just like gloss over that and then he shows up with the...
Oh, Danielle, I'm so going to get to that.
Okay.
Despite all the stress, George finds it very easy to write because, quote, if there's one thing that served as better inspiration than unrequited love, it was death. And I gotta say, I still don't think this book understands where artistic inspiration comes from.
So Brian was trying to get back with her and she was turning him down?
All she said was no.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. And that right there is the last we ever hear of Brian in this book.
Poor Brian. sort of.
I know. Kind of. Just written out without much ceremony. All right. So the wake is held in Risley Hall, the dorm where all the Bohemians live, which now is set up like this giant massive banquet hall with these tables and a feast set up. Everyone's there. Tolkien House Brothers, the Blue Zebras, Jinsei, etc. And Panhandle and Aphrodite have made a feast of, quote, roast chickens, fresh baked bread, pears, apples, an assortment of cheeses, and a hot, spicy brandy drink. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't know if they've ever been to a dorm kitchen, but it could not make a feast for dozens of people that is like of that. No way. I mean, I don't know what kind of dorm kitchens they have, but no, I don't think so.
It's a fancy college, Sam.
Maybe the Risley Hall is like a full service kitchen thing in it as well. Maybe I just don't understand, but it sounds like a dorm kitchen that does not exist.
Agreed. I didn't even have a dorm kitchen.
Yeah. Anyway, it's wild. If that kitchen exists, it's crazy. So George gets up to tell a story while Ragnarok broods by the fireplace, poking the fire with a fire poker that is actually one of Christopher Robin's lightning rods that he somehow acquired.
He stole it.
Who knows? It doesn't matter. It's barely relevant to the story. While this is happening, Rasferret is possessing the messenger bird and flying around Risley Hall to get a look at his future opponent, to like scope him out. And he sneers the sight of George, who looks like a weak mortal. Like, oh, I could probably kill him now. Hey, that's a great idea. Let me just kill him now and be done with it, right?
So he found out who his opponent was?
He's like always knew. Like his magical senses could tell him all the people. And once George returned to campus after being on vacation, he's like, I gotta get a good look at him.
His spider senses were tingling.
Basically. So he decides to go kill George now, just because honestly, that's probably the smartest thing he's ever done.
I would agree. I think that's what all bad guys should do. Just why do they always wait until they've gained power?
Well, Mr. Sunshine is like, no, you can't do that. This is my story. I don't want you to kill him now. Like, this is going to get to my plan because Mr. Sunshine is writing a bad story that's full of cliches and stupidity.
He really just wants to see his vision, like, acted out on screen, essentially.
Yeah, basically, he doesn't actually care about setting things up for drama or the characters, like what their actual intentions or thoughts are. Like, he's not trying to create a living world. He just wants them to read his lines, basically.
Yeah, that'd be really boring.
Yeah, that sounds like a terrible, like, oh, I'm this mystical story, right? Like, no, you're not. You're just a puppet master who pretends like that his characters are interesting, but he's making them do whatever they want, despite if it's in character or not.
You tell him.
Because it's totally in character for Rasferret to want to kill George right now. Like, that's what he does. It would make total sense for his character, but Mr. Sunshine wants to force him to go against his character.
Can you imagine as a human, like you walk into a room and there's this little grub and he's like, I've come to kill you. You're
like holding a little sword, like, now you must duel. Like, why? Mr. Sunshine commands we duel. You're like, I don't understand.
It would be so funny. You're like, you've come to kill me. You what a little 6-inch grub.
But it possesses a sex doll to kill you, and then you're really scared.
Well, yeah, until he shows his power. But it's like the initial, like, I'm here to kill you thing would be hilarious. You're like, I could just step on you.
So I could like give you like a drop, kick you into the wall, and I'd be done with this.
Which if he reacted fast enough, it probably would be the end of it.
Yeah. So Mr. Sunshine, instead of simply changing Rasferret's mind, which he can do, because of course he can, he's all powerful apparently, he instead decides to let Rasferret make his attempt, but to use it as a lesson for Rasferret, or like a punishment, I guess, for defying him.
Okay.
So what happens is, the bird dives into the hall through a window, shattering it, and tries to impale George, but, quote, the bird was quick, but love was quicker, and Aurora knocks George down so the bird misses him.
Okay.
Yeah. Jinsei recognizes the bird from the Boneyard and is like freaks out and throws hot liquid on the bird, which causes it to start to melt. And then it wheels around for some more attacks at George. But he like throws his story papers up in the air, which, you know, magically blind the bird because they fly just so. And as the bird is briefly blinded by the papers, Aurora grabs the hot poker from Ragnarok and impales the bird through the neck. And then she and George together wrestle the bird into the fireplace where it melts and dies and the fire goes out.
Okay. Question.
Yeah.
And you'll go over part of this, I'm sure, in a second. But if the body that Rasferret is in dies, does he die?
No. He's just possessing it.
Yeah, he
like seeing
too.
Through its eyes.
Well, some magic, that wouldn't work.
Yeah, no. Even though he, quote unquote, sends a bit of his soul into the objects he possesses, it doesn't affect him really at all when they're hurt or destroyed.
And are they at all concerned that there's like a magic iceberg?
No, they don't seem to care at all.
What a world.
I know. These people just like, yeah, magic iceberg. Jinsei even recognizes it from the Boneyard and followed me here and does not care.
Crazy. You think Jinsei would be getting worried? She's been followed by an animate sex doll. I think Jinsei of all the characters would be like, these are after me.
She should be freaking out way more than she is. Like, this should be like, an asylum level of freak out. You imagine it's really like, the animate sex doll is after me and an iceberg is trying to kill me. Like, these are things that would be legitimately horrifying and no one would believe her. This book should be a study of her psychological journey into like madness. But no, it's not that. It's much less interesting than that.
That's sad. Think of how many ways we've already made this book more interesting.
Maybe. I mean, like, to be fair, every time we make suggestions, we haven't actually taken the time to write these, so, we're just talking out our butts.
That's the best way to talk, Sam.
Oh, just like Ace Ventura, right?
Yes.
So Mr. Sunshine is satisfied with his punishment for Rasferret, and the punishment is he no longer has access to the messenger, which is like his eyes in the sky, and also provides him transportation. So now he's like grounded, basically.
Grounded grub.
Exactly. And after all that happens, Ragnarok does the most important thing, and he tells George to finish the story he was telling that he wrote for Preacher. Uh-huh. Because that's what's most important at the moment right now. His dumb story.
Who cares about the ice bird?
Right. No, it's all about George and his story. It's way more important than the mortal danger Jinsei is in from apparently magic sources.
Crazy.
Yeah, no, this is why I think I don't like George.
Well, it's not his fault he's the main character of the story.
No, but I don't like how he's treated. It's dumb. Anyway, the next day, Blackjack is sitting by himself, feeling all sad and angry that Luther ran off with just a vague message about he's going to heaven, which legitimate. I think Blackjack has a legitimate grievance there.
After all the work he did to keep Luther safe just to get to this stupid school.
And then Luther just abandons him. Absolutely. She has every right to be ticked off. So he's taking out his frustration by impregnating pretty much every other cat he can on campus.
Well, that's not necessary, Jack. He's not the one that has to carry all the kittens to term.
And he hates kittens and is very glad that he has nothing to do with raising them or interacting with them after he's done with the deed.
What a sexist little jerk face.
That's how the cats work, apparently.
I don't know.
Rover 2-Back comes up to him and is like, hey, I had a premonition about Luther. You don't have to worry about him. He'll be home by spring, if spring comes.
Dun, dun,
bum, bum, bum. Blackjack is not mollified by this. Sometime later, Ragnarok and Jinsei are riding his motorcycle around campus. They've been talking more and spending time together after Preacher's death. That sort of brought them together.
Mm-hmm.
She's trying to build him up, talking about like, how, hey, you broke out of this, you're better for this. And eventually she asks him about like, hey, did you actually kill your father? And he's like, no, I didn't kill my father. So we now know the answer to that question, Danielle.
If he's telling the truth.
If he's telling the truth. But he's like, I really wanted to. That's his great shame. He always feels that his anger, even though he never acts on it, apparently, the fact that he has it is enough to make him ashamed, which doesn't make any sense to me.
It doesn't. I mean, everybody has emotions, and he manages to circumvent or figure his out. He manages his
emotions well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he should be, anyway, it's absolutely ridiculous. We also learned that the transgression that his father kicked him out for was not, in fact, working for a black-owned business, but buying shingles for a construction job from a black-owned business. So it's even dumber.
It is even dumber. I hate his dad.
Well, he's supposed to be hated, Danielle, so good job. I know. Meanwhile, there's a lot of meanwhile in this book, Danielle.
Yes, clearly.
A trucker is hauling a bunch of pigs and has gotten lost around Cornell and Ithaca trying to find the place to drop the pigs off.
I love how the meanwhiles are always nothing related to the actual story.
Absolutely. Her truck engine dies right near Ragnarok's home, and she gets out to knock on the door and see if anyone can help her call a tow truck or get some help. When suddenly the truck starts driving off all on its own.
Weird.
The trucker is terrified to see the engine A is not on, and B, there's no one driving the cab, and the headlights have an eerie blue glow.
Ew.
The truck drives off and finds, guess who?
George? Ragnarok?
Well, Jinsei and Ragnarok. It's always Jinsei. For whatever reason, this grub has a big old murder desire for Jinsei.
You think that they would you think the grub would be pleased that they opened the box?
Yeah. Or maybe at least that the grub, that Rasferret be like, I tried to kill her once already. Why don't you just move on to someone else? Why does it have to be Jinsei every time?
I just don't understand why they're targeted just for opening the box.
They're just targeted not just for opening the box, they're just targeted for being targeted. There's no reason for it.
It's like the mummy's curse.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. But anyway, Jinsei and Ragnarok are still chatting. When she sees the truck and the blue light, she's like, oh my gosh, that's the thing that killed Preacher. I recognize those blue eyes anywhere.
It's convenient that it has a tail.
Yeah, exactly. And so they hop on Ragnarok's motorcycle and they zoom out of there crazy dangerously over the frozen road while the truck chases them. I'm going to mostly gloss over the truck chase because it's a car chase in a book. You can pretty much guess what that's going to be like. But eventually, Ragnarok leads the truck to the top of this slope and he and Jinsei bail off the bike just as it crests the slope and tumbles down, and the truck, with its momentum, also goes over the slope and crashes into a tree sideways, and the blue lights fade from the eyes, and Ragnarok goes up to try to beat up who's ever in the cab, but there's no one in the cab driving the truck!
Oh my gosh, shocking. So the grub is not smart enough to like get out of the truck before it crashes into something.
Well, he's not in the truck. He's possessing the truck, so it doesn't like hurt him or anything.
Which is dumb magic that you can possess something and it has no effect on you if it gets hurt. What about all the pigs in the back of the truck, Sam?
They spill out and are terrible. And they were destined for slaughter anyway, but I think they just make a whole bunch of ruckus and are screaming and maybe spill out of the back of the truck when it crashes.
That's so sad. I mean, it's already like, it's going to be hard enough. The pigs.
Yeah. Well, they're going to be slaughtered anyway, so now they're terrified, which is not good.
Don't like that.
Hamlet, meanwhile, is chilling on his island in the middle of the frozen lake. Sprites has started going missing. Some 35 of them so far have just vanished.
That seems deeply concerning.
It should be, but Hamlet is totally unconcerned by this. He's like, I've got a crossbow and I'm pretty good with my sword. I'm totally cool being on my island all alone.
That's not like a couple of sprites. That's like half of a population.
It's dozens of sprites have gone missing, and the sprites just seem like, oh, that's kind of weird. They are decidedly uncurious about the origins of these mysterious vanishings. It's awful. They're just like, they're dead. What, like the Borg almost. Like, if one goes down, they just don't seem to care.
It's an interesting choice.
So Hamlet decides to go out and check on his boat, which he does regularly to make sure that the engine isn't like frozen up or, like you do with the car when you keep it docked for a while. Mm-hmm. And he brings only a lantern with them because apparently he's so good with his sword and crossbow to defend himself that he can just leave them back in his hut and doesn't have to worry about them.
That's stupid. He deserves to die in this situation.
I'll give you one guess as to what happens, Danielle.
He dies.
He's attacked by rats, absolutely. So he's attacked by rats on his boat because he has no weapons to defend himself. But he's just so good that he manages to smash the lantern over one of the rats' heads and it sets it on fire, which sets the whole boat on fire. And he manages to get one of their swords, starts fighting his way off the boat. And he eventually climbs into the catapult on his boat, and the fire burns the rope, and he gets flung by his catapult way off into the distance.
Killed by his own catapult.
Unfortunately, no. He lands safely in a snowbank, and as he's trying to sneak away past some guard rat, guess who shows up to save him?
Zephyr.
No.
Puck.
Yes. Puck, who everyone assumed was dead. Puck shows up.
We assumed Puck was dead?
No. Everyone else has assumed Puck was dead.
Why?
Because he was in the plane crash with Hobart. They can't find his body.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that. We didn't mention that in the summary.
I told you that the rats attacked Zephyr and we'd get to it, then we didn't. So I think you said we won't, and we didn't. So I guess you win that round. But yes, the plane crash that put Hobart in a coma and supposedly killed Puck. He survived, and he's been like skulking around investigating because he explains he's been playing dead so he can sneak around and try to figure out who's behind all the disappearances, who's commanding the rats.
Why couldn't he do that while alive?
Great question, Danielle. His very stupid explanation is that if I went and told the others that something was going on, or like that my suspicions about all this, that if I revealed myself to still be alive, it might prod our unknown enemy into attacking early before they're ready to attack.
They've already killed like 30-something of you.
That's my point. And also, forcing your enemy to do something before they're ready is a good tactic.
It is a good tactic.
He's like, if we do it now, he'll attack now and kill everyone. Like, well, so you're going to let him build up his army more and kill them slowly, maybe? Like, you're stupid, Puck. You're very stupid.
Attack on his own terms.
Yeah, he's like, I'm going to sneak around, not warn my friend, so he can continue to attack them from the shadows and build up his strength instead of letting them know now, maybe forcing to attack early before he's at his full power.
Yeah, it's terrible, warring.
He is the dumbest person. However, this convinces Hamlet to join him in pretending to be dead.
Oh, gosh.
Because this logic is foolproof to Hamlet.
Maybe all the sprites aren't missing. Maybe they're just all pretending to be dead.
That'd be the best. Unfortunately, these are only two that are pretending to be dead. All the ones are dead, and these are the ones who deserve to be dead, so it's dumb. Also, during their conversation, Puck offhandedly comments that it sounds a lot like the stories that Hobart used to tell about the war and Rasferret the Grub. And Hamlet's like, yeah, but Rasferret's dead, right? And Puck's like, well, we're supposed to be dead. And then instead of taking that information and telling people, hey, maybe Rasferret's back, they do nothing and pretend to be dead for longer.
Crazy.
I'm so angry with these characters for behaving in the least logical ways. And the ways that are not within their character. Like, what in Puck's character has led him to be sneaky and tactical? Like, he is a brash Russian kind of guy.
That's true. I don't think you probably would have pretended to be dead in the first place.
I don't think so either. Anyway. Frustrating. Meanwhile, Luther. Hey, back to the next meanwhile in this book. Meanwhile, Luther has been wandering back towards Ithaca. We don't get much of this journey, Danielle.
Which is dumb, because why have him on it?
Yeah, no, it's for timing reasons only, so that he can arrive back at Cornell at a specific time. That's the only reason he's on this journey.
That's dumb. The poor dog has to go through all of that just to arrive back at a specific time.
Yeah, that's literally the only reason for this journey, so that the timing can work out so the story is dramatic or whatever. Although it would still be dramatic and work out if it was the other way around. I don't know why. Anyway, we'll get to that, I promise. But first, we don't go into the story, but I will tell you the highlights, which is that at one point Calliope comes by to encourage him and to help him stow away on a boat so he can cross Lake Michigan. Later, in Ohio, a farmer tries to tie a leash or a rope around his neck to catch him, but he escapes and runs off. And as he's running off, he comes to abrupt bank of a river and almost tumbles off of it into the river. But the rope catches on some branches and he finds himself strung up over the riverbank, choking basically, but being able to barely maintain consciousness as his feet are dangling on the ground just above the riverbank.
But he gets out of that, I assume.
While he's choking, he starts having visions in the water. First of dragon, and I just figured out that, oh look, another dragon in this book.
You just figured it out? I thought we talked about that earlier.
We talked about a different dragon. We might have, or a different dragon. I don't know. It just came back to me because dragon has been mentioned in 400 pages.
Right, he's was he the cat?
No, Dragon's the killer dog from
that's
the
right. No, I
suburbs.
knew it was in the suburbs. I just couldn't remember if it was a cat or a dog.
No, it's very much a dog. Yeah. Who's the prejudiced, racist dog?
Right, the one that tried to kill them all. I got it.
Yes.
Before the dog kidnapper killers came in.
But here's the dumb part of this book, Danielle. His name is Dragon. Not once does he ever meet George.
That's an interesting choice, given George's life.
George never encounters this dragon, ever. He's irrelevant to George's story.
That's such a weird... Why?
I don't know, Danielle. So like I said, I just got his name as Dragon. It came to me again. I'm oh, surely this is going to play out now in this chapter. It does not. Anyway, this vision of Dragon he has in the water is I'm coming for you. I've been having dreams about this. I know I'm going to get there first, and I'm going to kill the cat, and then I'm going to kill you when you arrive.
Why is Dragon out for revenge?
Because he hates Luther really very much, and they escaped, and they got all his friends killed by the catchers when they ran him over.
They didn't do that. The catchers did it.
I'm not saying they did,
but revenge on the catchers.
His intense prejudice makes him blame Luther, and he just wants to kill them for getting away and making him look a fool. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. He has to because the plot demands it, Danielle.
Sure, and then, assuming for whatever reason he hates Luther, even though he only met him for 5 minutes. Then finding this random dog that has been all over the United States, good luck.
He has no problem finding him because he's being led to Ithaca by magic, the same way Luther was led there by the smell of heaven.
No.
Don't tell you, Danielle. It happens. But Dragon here fades and becomes a vision of Rack. Remember who Rack is?
No.
The dog devil.
Oh, yeah. That's right. They have their own mythos. I forgot.
Yeah, the whole mythos is explained in great detail in this book. They have some banter, and Rock prods Luther about the 5 questions, specifically question 4 about which breed is the best breed of dog. And Luther is the superior breed of dog is one that admits it can't answer the 4th question because it's a dumb question with no answer. And Rock's oh, what breed are you? And Luther's I'm no breed at all. And Rock's all right, I'll let you live for a little while. And the rope untangles itself and he falls into the river.
Sure, that's how that works.
That's exactly how this works in this book, Danielle. Exactly how this works.
I kind of support Rock in that he's whatevs.
Rock is cool. He seems chill. Although we only see him for now and never again, but yeah. Meanwhile, we cut to the Adams Research Station, where a truly awful person is working there as an animal handler. Remember I told you every person is cartoonishly evil if they're not a main character?
Yes.
This person is that to the extreme. He is someone who hates animals. He loves seeing them tortured in this research facility. He is a terrible misogynist, or he calls himself a lukewarm misogynist, who dated a vegetarian and loved to make her squirm because he told her about how all the times he killed dogs at his job.
Why did she stay with him?
She didn't eventually. She totally dumped his butt.
The first time he said that, you think you'd leave.
Yeah, no. Anyway, so he's just a cartoonishly evil person, and he gets a call from another mysterious person who is obviously Mr. Sunshine, who tells him, hey, there's a cage open in your area. One of the dogs got out. And he's who are you? I don't know who you are, but let me go check it out anyway. And he goes and finds that the door to Dragon's cage is open. And then the lights go out in the room, just all of a sudden for no reason.
Uh-oh.
And he decides, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to crawl inside that cage to see if the dog is still in there.
You can't see inside the cage. How dark is this cage?
Well, the lights went out, Danielle.
What? I just don't understand. Why?
The lights went out because Mr. Sunshine wanted the lights to go out.
You could just stick your hand in there and put, like, cages aren't that big, Sam.
The book even says that he could have just closed the cage door with like a broom handle and been like, he's probably still in there. But he's like, nope. Instead, he decides to double check for whatever reason.
Stupid.
Very stupid. And he's immediately destroyed by Dragon. Mauled to death.
I don't even feel bad for him.
Well, that's the point, is that they got to be so evil that you can kill him off without feeling bad for him.
I like the idea that Matt Ruff, at the end of this novel, was just like, how can I tie all these loose ends together? Just like created all these scenarios, like the pig truck and this random dude who works at the research facility, and like
yeah, I like to imagine he wrote like all of the main character scenes. Like, wait a minute, none of these tie together in any way. I have to write all these interstitial pieces now to like create transitions to them.
I can only assume that's what happened.
Great. Mr. Sunshine is really pleased with how graphic the murder of this man is, and he is the worst.
I mean, we don't really care that the guy died, though.
No, we don't. But I'm not going to revel in his grisly death. Meanwhile, the months pass from February to March. Rasferret has been greatly hampered by the loss of the messenger bird. And also, Mr. Sunshine decided to blind Rasferret's magic senses to George so he can't find him, so that Rasferret won't go after him again.
Mr. Sunshine is just full of it.
He is so heavy-handed in this, Danielle. He is not, like, his whole, like, oh, I'm a storyteller and I bring characters together. You're like, no, BS. You are, like, just some weird manipulative person who pretends that they're actually, like, doing interesting things. And so Rasferret has sunk into paranoia and is mostly hiding out in the Boneyard because he doesn't know where his enemy is and he has like limited power. So he's mostly just staying there and building up his forces, which would be a great time for Puck and Hamlet to come back and tell everyone where he is and what's going on. But they decide not to still.
Well, you can't have your big epic finale if he does it early, Sam.
Well, that's exactly what happened, because every time Puck and Hamlet think about undeadifying themselves, like revealing to the world they're no longer dead, Mr. Sunshine sends them second thoughts that keep them in hiding.
So he's making the plot somehow less interesting.
Yes, he's basically delaying everything. Like, he's like, okay, I have it too early. I have a timetable I need to stick to. It has to happen on March 15th. Otherwise, it won't be as interesting or something.
Otherwise, all my comments about the Ides of March won't matter.
That's when the Dragon Parade is, so it has to happen on the Dragon Parade day.
Well, he wants his vision to be unfurled in the way that he wants it unfurled, Sam.
I know, and I hate it. It's a bad vision, Danielle.
I don't disagree.
All right, so one morning, George's preparing breakfast of pancakes and hot dogs for Aurora. And he's telling Aurora how beautiful she is when she sleeps, and how he just watches her sleep for, 20 or 30 minutes before getting up, which is super creepy.
It is. Did you say pancakes and hot dogs for breakfast?
I did. And Aurora also commented on how that's very stupid. And they have this dumb little argument that's supposed to be all cute about how, like, George is like, oh, hot dogs are like bacon and eggs. They're just meat. It's just like sausage or bacon. It's meat. And she's like, no, they're hot dogs. And it's like, oh, look how cute they are. They're having a little couple banter.
I mean, I would eat pancakes and hot dogs. It's an interesting combination.
It is. And it's supposed to be all quirky and cute. And I have no time for this.
I don't want character development and unnecessary details.
It's not character development, Danielle. It's like...
It's relationship development, Sam.
It's not that, though, because it's so contrived, is what I'm trying to get at. He doesn't feel natural or interesting.
I don't know. Pancakes and hot dogs seem like a real world thing.
They seem fine, but like... For these characters and now, like, because he goes on to say, like, although they're a few months into the relationship, Aurora is still all shy around him. Like, it's trying to make that, like, this whole, it feels weirdly male-gazing and, like, contrived and weird.
Got it.
I don't know. Like, it's fine. It's not bad. It's just, like, it feels too cute by half, is what I'm trying to get at. Like, it feels like there's too much effort being put into making them seem cute and fun and compatible.
Okay. I'll take your word for it.
Destined to be together. I don't know.
They are destined to be together, Sam. They're literally being forced together.
I know. And it's like, now he's trying to justify that and being, oh, how cute they are together.
Well, they're a perfect match. And even if they weren't, it wouldn't matter because they'd be forced to stay together until Mr. Sunshine decides he doesn't want them together anymore.
And this is why I find it hard to care about any of this, because it all feels like how much of this is just contrived. Like, it doesn't matter.
Well, the whole book doesn't matter if you're going from that perspective.
So I'm not trying to say that like a story needs to have a particular purpose or message in mind or something. But like when your story is about storytelling, like literally about a magic storyteller trying to weave a story, and you take away all the agency of all your characters in the story, it doesn't feel like I have very much investment. Like these character choices don't matter because they're not coming from the characters.
Right. That's what I was saying. Technically the entire book doesn't matter because it's all being driven by this one person.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at.
So nobody has any agency. And how terrible would it be to find out that your entire life's being driven by somebody else?
Whoa, Danielle, foreshadowing.
Oh, no.
Anyway, so Aurora notices that there's a fruit basket that's been delivered to George, and it's full of pretty to gross fruit, with the exception of one very good-looking apple.
It's gross as in, like, squishy?
Like old and kind of rotten. And there's a note on the basket that says, Bon voyage from the ferryman.
Yeah, I wouldn't eat the one good apple. That's creepy.
Well, guess what she does, Danielle?
Because she's Snow White.
So they joke about how the apple might be poisoned, like the wine was from the creepy guy she got when she was 12, or just like Snow White. And Aurora like laughs it off and takes a bite of the apple and immediately collapses, just like Snow White.
Well, you know what? That's her own fault.
It's very stupid. Don't like eat random fruit left on your porch.
Especially when all of it's bad except one piece. That seems very questionable.
Again, these people don't make decisions that make any sense, that any human would make. Meanwhile, Ragnarok and Jinsei are still spending time together. All their trauma has made them very good friends. Like they're building a true friendship.
Good for them. Ragnarok needs a good friend.
Exactly. And they're leaving an ice cream parlor, and they run into Jack Barron and his cronies. Remember them? They're still in this book.
Yeah, they're the ones from the dance, right?
And the Rho Alpha Tau frat.
Yes.
So Jack starts goading Ragnarok and like teasing him about Preacher's death because, again, cartoonishly
Oh my gosh, why would you do that?
Because he's a cartoonishly evil person, Danielle.
Crazy.
And Jinsei's like holding Ragnarok back because he's like trying to get Ragnarok to attack himself because there are cops nearby that want to get Ragnarok in trouble for assault or something. And to get Jack to back off, eventually Jinsei's like, I'll hit you myself. And Jack's like, oh, do you only put up for assault? And she says, no, I'll just say you were threatening to rape me and I was defending myself. And that's like what gets Jack and everyone to back off. And it's like, what? That's terrible. Like, first off, don't use the threat of rape as like a threat because it diminishes the legitimate accusations of rape that people make every day that other people try to dismiss as false.
Right.
And it's terrible. It's terrible.
Well, this book tries, but it is written in the 80s.
Yeah, I just feel like, it gets so close to being a nice progressive book with some good ideas, and then it does things like this.
Or sex dolls.
Well, I don't think sex dolls inherently are bad.
No, they're not.
And when they come to life to murder people, that's fun.
I meant that they got the sex doll
the
because,
joke.
Yeah, that part. Not specifically the sex doll.
Okay.
Don't ever do what you want to do.
And after they leave, Jack says, this isn't over yet, because he's a villain from an 80s ski comedy movie.
I'll get you, Gadget.
Pretty much. So, March 14th, the eve of the Ides, Mr. Sunshine decides he has a bit more meddling to do, because he hasn't done enough already. And he decides to do it with extreme overkill, caring very little about collateral damage.
Doesn't he do that normally?
This is what they like. I don't understand what he considers meddling, what he considers not meddling, because what I've seen so far is that he's basically directed these people like they're puppets. Like he has his hand up their butts and is working their mouths like they're Muppets performing for him, as far as I can tell. But he decides he's going to do something very extreme, and he brews up this noxious stew, and he lifts the lid of the stew, and he blows the steam out over Ithaca, and it forms these clouds that join the other clouds over Ithaca, and it starts this foul rain.
I don't understand his magic.
No, it doesn't make any sense. It's just everything. He can do anything. He's omnipotent.
Yeah, and it's like some of it he could just think into existence, and some of it he's like, I need to use a tube to send my message on, or I need to boil some stew to blow it into the clouds. But other times he can just be like, make stuff happen.
I mean, I get the sense from the book that he can just write whatever he wants into existence, but he enjoys employing these other more esoteric methods as a way to keep things interesting, to
clearly
entertain himself.
Well, he certainly is not entertaining himself by letting these people live their actual lives, so.
Yeah, which is the worst part. And I should have mentioned, the dog philosophy talks a lot about how, what is the meaning of life? And one of the arguments that's made is that it's just entertainment for God. It's just God entertaining itself with our lives are a play or something for God's enjoyment.
I mean, maybe.
But that's supposed to be Mr. Sunshine, I guess. And I'm still not buying it though, because how entertaining is it to just control everything and have no surprises?
Well, if you're type A personality, like he apparently is, maybe he really gets a lot of contentment and enjoyment out of watching all his creatures do exactly what he wants them to do when he wants them to do it, with no deviations.
You're right, Danielle. A+ character. I'm wrong.
I'm just saying you have to think about his thought process, Sam.
Okay. Well, I guess there's more thought that I put into it.
He's a micromanager.
Clearly. That's why he has his thousands of monkeys he gives his stories to work on when he's not doing it.
Yeah, but he then probably changes it all up so that it happens exactly how he wants it to happen anyway.
Probably true.
He likes to organize things, so he appreciates the chaos because then he can come back in and organize it all.
Oh, this is like a Rubik's Cube. He has to mess it up first so he can then fix it.
Absolutely. That's his enjoyment right there. We figured it out. Problem solved. I don't know why you thought his character was so complicated.
So this magical rain comes out, and every few drops of rain tend to be magic. And when they hit something, havoc ensues. If they strike power lines, a power goes out. If they strike machines, they die or go haywire. If they land on people, the people go crazy and start behaving in weird and irrational ways. It's like a weird... Remember the sex cloud that happened?
Uh-huh.
It's like that, but for chaos. It's a chaos cloud.
Sometimes when we're talking about this book, I like to think about our listeners who maybe didn't listen to the previous episode, and then we reference things like, oh, the animate sex doll, or the sex cloud, or the...
Well, Danielle, if they came into part 4, a clearly labeled part 4 of the story, that's on them. If they're confused, I'm sorry, that's their fault. I can't save them from that.
I just like the idea that you're listening to the story, you would be like, what the heck happened previous to this?
If this is something that you are doing, I highly recommend going back and listening to the previous parts to get just the barest hint of context.
Or maybe just do it backwards. 4, 3, 2, 1 would probably be an interesting way to approach the story.
Oh, yeah, to see context slowly grow. Or maybe it doesn't. That's the best part.
That'd be kind of funny.
Well, if you decide to do that, let us know. Anyway, Ragnarok is heading home in the rain. He's being affected by it, and he finds that his house has been broken into and totally smashed to pieces.
Oh no, his little weird dark cavern?
Yep, smashed up. Like someone took a sledgehammer to his walls and toilet and destroyed everything. And the worst of all, he goes back and he finds this motorcycle, which he'd been repairing after the run-in with the truck, has been totally demolished.
That's so sad. Leave Ragnarok alone.
Ragnarok is totally incensed. He grabs his nearby mace and he stalks out to go kill Jack Barron, whom he knows is the one who did this. He just knows it. And Mr. Sunshine is very satisfied. He created this entire rainstorm just to get Ragnarok mad at Jack.
That's crazy. So Jack didn't do it. It was just the rain?
Jack absolutely did.
Okay. I wanted to make sure it's clear.
But for whatever reason, he couldn't just have Jack do it. He had to make the rain happen to make Jack go crazy and smash up Ragnarok's place and make Ragnarok crazy to go after Jack. Like, it's all nonsense. Like, it's so overcomplicated.
That's Mr. Sunshine.
Meanwhile, George is waiting by Aurora's bed in the hospital, and I want someone out there to do like a count and go back through all our episodes and count every time I say meanwhile in this book and like make a list of it, because I bet it's over 100 at least.
Why is Aurora in the hospital?
Because she ate the magic apple and fell unconscious.
Right. I instantly forgot about that because so many weird things happened after it.
Welcome to this book.
It's like I'm really reading it.
Kind of, as if you never remember anything. And because he's also a storyteller, George recognized that maybe he's also in a story. He's being puppeted around by someone who's put him into a fairy tale.
I know, that would be my first thought when something weird happened in my actual life. Is like, somebody must be writing my story as it's happening.
Is that true, or are you being facetious?
I'm being facetious. Why would that ever be your thought?
I know. But he's been going to the library and reading all the books on fairy tales and stuff to see if he can figure out, A, how to save Aurora, because kissing her didn't work. We'll get to that. Or how he can break out of the story or something. And the only thing that he ever learned from all of that reading in the library is that St. George had been killed and resurrected 3 times, and he bled in milk, apparently. So, good research, I guess.
That's just wild. I don't understand why your first thought would be, maybe I'm part of a fairy tale.
Well, I mean, the magic apple is kind of a clue.
Sure, but I would just think that somebody was like trying to poison you or something wrong with the apple. Like, I don't know, Sam. Like, there's lots of weird stuff going on in this book. I don't understand why you think, like, your next thought would be, oh, somebody must be creating a world that I'm living in.
Well, to be fair, Calliope did kind of give him that clue about, like, how there's someone and he was a prologue and there's a story going on.
Sure.
So, like, I agree. It's absolutely insane conclusion to jump to, but also like everything in this book is absolutely insane. So I don't know what else to think.
If you were going to think that, you think you would have thought that after you talked to Calliope, or you would have just thought, wow, that's a weird woman.
Either way.
It's so far outside of the realm of it, like something that would normally happen in daily existence. I don't know why that would be like the last thought you would get to.
We're going to love his next thought here, Danielle, because he decides, George, that his kiss did not wake up Aurora because he was not worthy yet. He's not a prince. He's only a saint or whatever.
Okay.
He's not Prince George. He's Saint George. And he hasn't done any good deeds to earn the power of waking her with a kiss.
Yeah, see, it's just bizarre.
So he decides to go out and prove himself worthy of saving Aurora by doing good deeds around town.
It's impressive to me that you so believe this theory that you're gonna go do all of that.
No, it's absolutely crazy. Again, makes about as much sense as Mr. Sunshine saying that this is a good way to write a story.
Crazy.
George fails spectacularly to accomplish any good deeds. No one seems to need his help. And he wanders around getting more and more desperate.
It's just like no deeds in the entire town that need to be done.
Yeah. Like he tries to help people cross the street, doesn't work out. He tries to approach people who think he needs help, but they don't need help. They're just having sex, that kind of thing.
They don't need help. They're just having sex.
He hears a woman screaming and it goes to investigate down by the gorge and it's just a pair of undergrads
you didn't
having
have to
sex
explain
outside.
It was funnier when we had no idea what the context was.
Well, it happened, Danielle, so let's move past it. Meanwhile, Ragnarock is marching through campus past the chaos caused by the rain. He runs into ZZ Top, who has Lionheart's horse because the horse broke free and went a little crazy. And he steals the horse saying, "Need the speed," and rushes off on the horse.
ZZ Top's like, okay.
Meanwhile, in the Rat Frat house, the boys are all playing poker when Jack comes in, raving about, "Where is he? He should be here." And the brothers are just like, "Jack, what the heck are you talking about?" And then the clock chimes, and Jack smashes the grandfather clock with his sledgehammer. And one of the other people is like, "Hey, my father paid for that clock." And then Jack smashes him in the face with a sledgehammer.
Ow.
And everyone's just like, "You gotta chill out, Jack." And I don't know what's going on. Mr. Sunshine just seems way off book. None of these characters seem to make any sense. This is totally out of character for everyone in this book.
You think that if some random person, I'm not random, but one of the guys came in with a sledgehammer and started whacking people in the faces, they'd jump him and pin him to the ground because he's clearly on something or something's going on with him.
Right. Also, that's not in character for Jack, who's been portrayed as this cool-headed, conniving, evil-minded person who doesn't get his own hands dirty. And now he's suddenly a raving lunatic, flinging a sledgehammer around.
Yeah.
These characters are totally inconsistent and they change the whims of Mr. Sunshine. It's very frustrating.
I have a question, unrelated.
Yeah.
So it's called the Rat Frat Pack. Is that going to come into play with
The Rat Frat.
That's what I said, the Rat Frat Pack.
No, the pack is not part of this.
Rat Frat, whatever. So are they going to come into play with the grub having power over rats?
No.
Oh, that's such they should. He should.
It's a really good tie-in. Danielle, all right, I'm going to spoil something now because you have to appreciate how infuriating this was for me. These three stories, Luther's story, George's story, Ragnarok's story, are entirely unrelated. They never interact with each other.
That's so weird. Why?
The book ends and George does his thing, the sprites do their thing, Luther does his thing, and Ragnarok does his thing, and they have no effect on each other. They're completely unrelated to each other.
That's so stupid.
I don't understand. This is I told you, it's 3 or 4 different stories that are somehow in the same book for whatever reason. You could pull each of these stories out, make them their own book, and it'll be totally fine. But somehow they're all in the same book, and they don't impact each other in any meaningful way.
I don't understand why he reuses concepts.
Well, yeah, the concepts, yes, you're right, Danielle. The concepts are reused, Dragon the dog is George fighting the dragon, but that's all it is. They're just parallels that don't really enhance the story. The parallel of the dog being named Dragon doesn't make Luther any more interesting and his struggle with Dragon, and it doesn't make George's struggle with the paper mache, the constructed dragon any more interesting. They're just, oh look, they're both named Dragon. How cute. They both have enemies named Dragon.
Yeah, I don't understand why he uses the same concepts like the dragon or the rat themes that are in the book, but doesn't actually tie them into the major overarching themes. Why repeat the themes if you're not going to tie them into the main theme?
This might go back to what I said in my first commentary about this book, that it's a first novel. And I want to be very clear again that this is, I think, still a very well, technically very well done book. Matt Ruff is a good author by all accounts. I haven't read his other work, but I'm not saying this is a badly written or oh my gosh, this is the worst thing I've ever read. But it feels amateurish in the sense that it's a first novel. It feels like his first novelitis, and that he's trying very hard to be clever. Look how clever am I? I can put all these themes and multiple stories, but it never actually pays off in a way that he doesn't quite get it right where they actually tie in together. Mm-hmm. So it sounds like he was trying to be clever by repeating themes, repeating tropes, but that he couldn't quite figure out how to get all of that to synergize well.
Right.
So, and maybe his later novels are amazing and all the better for it.
Well, They're certainly well known enough.
Yeah, it's interesting because you really want there to be payoff for all these stories, and they kind of fall flat, which is unfortunate.
So what happens next?
So Ragnarok is on his way, but he's not much of a horse rider, and he gets thrown off of the horse when he gets to the suspension bridge.
Uh-oh.
And he doesn't go over the edge of it, but he does knock his head on the guardrail and get knocked unconscious.
Why is there a gorge so close to the school?
I mean, there was a gorge on my campus, too.
Weird. Seems dangerous for college students.
Well, I mean, it wasn't that deep, but it was, there. I don't know. Some places just have features like that, Danielle.
Apparently.
So after Ragnarok's knocked unconscious, George wanders by and sees him there, and he calls an ambulance to get him there. And although he doesn't realize it, the narrator assures us that that is his good deed for the day. So he finally succeeded in doing a good deed.
Yay.
Which does not help him with Aurora at all, because it doesn't matter.
Does Aurora die? The end.
Yes, hopefully.
Plot twist.
In the hospital, Ragnarok wakes up and immediately gets out of bed. Lionheart and Miyoko are like, whoa, dude, get back into bed. You just had a massive concussion. And Ragnarok is like, no, I need to talk to George. I know he's here visiting Aurora. I've had dreams or visions or something. And so he goes to find George in Aurora's room and he tells him, what you've been looking for? It's in the Boneyard. And George is like, cool, thanks for letting me know. Here's your mace back. I found it by your body. And then they part ways. So George goes to the Boneyard and wanders down to where Pandora's plaque used to be, and he's assailed by rats with their tiny crossbows. And he likens it to Gulliver's Travels, like little pinpricks. And after he's knocked over and assailed by rats, he picks up this iron bar he finds and just starts decimating rats, whacking them left and right and smashing them, and they all get routed because, again, they're rats and he's a full-grown person.
Right. Did he not seem concerned that they had little tiny crossbows and walked up on their hind legs?
I think at this point, he's just going with it. He's not concerned with anything. He's just going with it. He's out of fine, I can just accept whatever comes my way at this point. I'm done. After they flee, George finds a spearhead in a tree. And this is a spear that was taken from the Tolkien House Matham Hole, the museum, by Calliope and placed in this tree just before she left George. As she was leaving George, she made a pit stop to grab this spearhead and throw it into this tree.
Specifically so that he would find it later when he went to the graveyard. Boneyard.
Yes, exactly right. And so George finds it and it has the inscription Fracture Draconis on it. And what a coincidence, the metal pole he picked up to fend off the rats fits perfectly into the head of the spear, and they join together and become a full spear now.
Fancy.
That's when Mr. Sunshine appears, Danielle.
He appears
and introduces himself to George as someone very old, also a storyteller.
Uh-huh.
And George is like, wait a minute, are you the one who's been putting me into a fairy tale? And Mr. Sunshine is like, I didn't have to meddle much to fit you into the story. And I'm like, oh, BS, you've meddled more than enough.
Makes you wonder what his idea of meddling a lot is.
Right? So I'm getting it. This is completely crazy. And so Mr. Sunshine, they banter back and forth. They have a little cutesy storyteller argument. So Mr. Sunshine leads him to the conclusion that he, as St. George, needs to fight the dragon as his great quest. And he's like, oh, the Green Dragon Parade. So I'm supposed to go kill the dragon, save the town. And Mr. Sunshine's like, no, George. No one said you were going to live. This is my story. And I am a Greek, so I like tragedy. You may die.
Why even tell him? What's the point of telling him that he's part of this?
I have no idea, Danielle. But here we are. And he goes on, and George's like, wait a minute, if this is supposed to be a fairy tale, and it's like, no, this is not a fairy tale about you. My story is about a fool who accepted without question when his uncle told him that artists were the only beings other than gods who could grant immortality, which is a dangerous attitude to take. And George rejoins, but if you're a pagan storyteller, isn't that the only attitude to take? And then Mr. Sunshine's like, no, very clever, George. I like you.
So it feels like Mr. Sunshine is kind of annoyed at George.
No, he's not annoyed. He's having fun bantering with him.
Are you sure? Sounds like a vengeance plan.
He literally says to George, I wish you were immortal. I think we'd be very good friends if you were also immortal like me.
Yeah, that doesn't mean he's not out for vengeance, Sam.
Vengeance for what?
For thinking that he's on a level like a god is.
I think he enjoys exposing people's hubris and arrogance.
Exactly. It's a little bit vengeance-y.
Okay, I wouldn't say vengeance. It's he's trying to engineer his Icarus moment.
Sure, but not that Mr. Sunshine is perfect by any means.
No. So after this exchange, George tries to get Mr. Sunshine to agree to a deal. He's like, look, if I kill that dragon, if I win the fight, promise me Aurora lives. And Mr. Sunshine just vanishes laughing. And I think that's a pretty terrible deal to make. Hey, how about ask her to let Aurora live whether you win the fight or not?
I just don't understand why he even came down in the first place. Why bother?
Mr. Sunshine or George?
Yeah, Mr. Sunshine.
I have no idea, Danielle.
It just seems like a weird choice. Like, I think I'm going to show him that it's all, like, being crafted now, for
so
sure.
Mr. Sunshine is now literally a part of his own story that he's writing. Like, this is a self-insert of epic proportions.
Yeah, it's kind of wild. I don't know why. I don't know why.
Again, these characters, I'm baffled by these characters and their choices. As I mentioned before, this is an atmosphere-heavy book. It's hard to convey the atmosphere in words, and the plot is making decisions, not the characters.
Right.
All right, Danielle, that was the end of book 3. We're on to book 4, The Ides.
We're so close.
We're so close.
This is the end, right? The last book?
Last book. And there's an epilogue, too, though, but we'll get to that.
Okay.
Back in 1866, Mr. Sunshine is in the Boneyard with Ezra Cornell, and he decides he's to meddle out a dragon, so he invents the Green Dragon Parade after confirming with Cornell that he intends to teach engineering and architecture. He's like, I need a dragon, and you're going to teach engineering and architecture. That's where I'll get my dragon. And so, literally, every part of this book has been engineered by him. He hasn't, taken advantage of people's natural choices. Everything is predetermined.
He's in charge of time itself.
Back in the present, Blackjack is awoken by Rover Too Bad, who tells him that a meeting is being called by the Dean of Studies because a dog has been murdered.
Uh-oh.
At the meeting, one hysterical purebred border collie is raving on about how the mongrels must have done it. They're crazed and can't be trusted, jealous of purebreds, since a purebred was murdered. An expert witness in the form of a bloodhound is called to tell what he learned by sniffing around the murder site. And he learned that what killed the dog was another dog. And the hysterical dog's like, what kind of dog was it? Was it a purebred? And he's like, I can't tell what a purebred dog is just by smelling it. Can you? And then he concludes his testimony by saying that the killer dog is a new dog to the hill, one that has never been seen before. And they need to form search parties to go and find it before it strikes again or something.
Uh-oh.
Yep.
Evil dog on the loose.
Guess who it is, Danielle?
Dragon.
Yes, of course it's Dragon.
Dragon's just psychotic.
He is. Meanwhile, the Green Dragon Parade is getting ready to start, and the party is already in full swing with carousing and revelry and drinking. However, as they prep, another storm seems to be rolling in, one that is isolating Ithaca from the outside world.
Of course it is.
And Mr. Sunshine did not make this one, but he decides to roll with it and use it anyway.
Why did Dragon kill a purebred?
We'll get to that.
Okay. I'm glad there's a reason.
I mean, kind of. The reason was he was hungry, mostly.
He ate him?
Yeah.
Ew.
Yeah.
Is he cannibal?
We'll get into how far Dragon has fallen from grace in a minute.
Creepy.
So Luther is now approaching Ithaca and concludes that no matter what, he can't kill Dragon. He's not a fighter. He won't let Rack into his heart. But he's going to go back to Ithaca anyway to be killed just because. Back in the Sprite Hospital, Zephyr is leaving Hobart's side to go to the clock tower and tend to the chimes in his stead. She's pretty bummed out losing her lover, Puck, and her grandfather. But heads up to the chimes to do her work anyway. Meanwhile, speaking of Puck and Hamlet, they decide now is the time to come back from the dead and rush into the hospital. Unceremoniously, pop it. Hey, we're here.
Why is this the time?
I don't know, Danielle. This is just the time that this was given to them.
They just decided one day.
Yep. And they go into Hobart's room to find that Hobart has just woken up and is sitting on the edge of his bed. And Hobart explains that he lied. Rasferret was never killed. They were afraid to do it, not even sure if they could do it, so they imprisoned him instead, and now he's back.
Why are you afraid to kill something that's already down?
Danielle, I don't know. They're afraid to try because they failed. I don't know, Danielle. It doesn't make any sense.
You could, try and fail and then lock him in a box.
But if they failed and killed him, they were all killed instead, then they wouldn't have succeeded anyway.
But he was already, didn't they bring him down first before they locked him in the box?
No, they tricked him sort of into the box. And he realized that it was by trickery that they got him into the box.
They should just, burn the box or something. I don't know. Stupid.
But they decided to put their efforts into tricking him to be imprisoned in a box rather than killing him outright. But now he's back, and Puck and Hamlet are like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense. We could have told you all about this a while ago. We decided not to. I mean, they don't say that last part, but that's what I feel the sentiment is. And now that he has a massive army that can destroy them all, they've revealed. And so instead of doing all of that, revealing all that earlier, they're like, I guess we'll wait till now until his massive army is unstoppable.
Yeah, if only they had mentioned it sooner.
And then Hobart says, I've learned a lot in my dreams. We're not going to kill Rasferret. He's got another purpose. He's someone else's foil. We just need to muster our troops to fight off the rats and survive.
That seems like a depressing battle.
Yeah, it is. And the French are like, sure, sounds good to us.
Just knowing you're kind of a side casualty.
Yeah. And that you can't kill the big evil guy that's trying to kill you because he's for another purpose.
That would suck.
Meanwhile, Blackjack and Rover Too Bad and another dog are out on a search party when they're attacked by Dragon, who's hiding under some leaves and ambushes them, lunges out of the leaf pile, grr, I'm a dog.
So I'm imagining went down.
Well, he bursts out and murders the first dog and then gravely wounds Rover Too Bad. and then starts teasing Blackjack and like, where's Luther? Where's the mange? Blackjack tries to run away, but is cornered on the suspension bridge because everything happens on that freaking suspension bridge over the gorge.
Yeah, it seems to be a very popular spot for showdowns.
It is. And Dragon is like about to pounce on him and kill him when Rover Too Bad distracts him, and Blackjack decides to not give him the satisfaction of having his corpse to present to Luther, and he dives off the suspension bridge into the raging river below.
Good job, Blackjack.
Yes, I guess.
Did he survive?
Maybe. Meanwhile, the sprites march out of the hospital, sending envoys to gather more troops to battle while moving into the kitchen of the building where they're in. And in this kitchen, there is this huge feast being prepared by the big people. I don't know why. It's called the Cross Country Gourmet Special. For whatever reason, there's a feast being prepared. Puck peels off to go find Zephyr, but in the kitchen, this feast is being prepared, and they even brought in this guest chef who is a massive Swedish Viking and who is literally crazy enough that he's able to see the sprites interact with them.
That's fun. I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
Sorry. Why? So the sprites know that there's like a war about to happen, right?
Yeah.
Why don't they just all go hide? Like,
Hide
why
where?
fight? I don't know. Anywhere in that kitchen. I don't know. Why can't they just like?
I think it's too late because they'd have to they're all over campus, right?
Yeah.
So they have to gather everyone together to hide them.
Well, when's the war going to happen?
Now. It's literally this second.
Okay. Sounded like it might be happening in the future, Sam.
Nope. Hobart woke up just in time to say, hey, the war's coming. We got to go now. Because Mr. Sunshine arranged for perfect timing. And anyway, so they brought in this big, crazy, massive Swedish Viking chef who's able to see the sprites and puts them to work, the ones who are in the kitchen already who don't know about the war yet. It puts them to work helping out as opposed to just stealing food. And I don't know why the school is bringing in a guest chef to do this massive feast. Like, I don't understand what's happening.
Is there nobody else in the kitchen? It's just
There's a whole bunch of other chefs, like the normal chefs, the normal cooks who work in the school.
Nobody thinks it's weird that like stuff's moving on its own.
Just like little things start getting done. Like, it's like, they're going to chop those onions, but they're already chopped. I guess it's done already. So they just like are not sure what's happening, but they're like, everything's going smoothly, so I'm not going to ask questions.
I don't think that's how that works. You'd see stuff moving on its own.
Apparently they don't. Because they can't see it because the sprites are invisible to them.
That doesn't make the knives they're using invisible, Sam.
It makes it makes them like their whole presence invisible.
Sure, okay.
They fill in the gaps in their own, like people make up their own reasons. They fill in the gaps.
Yeah, I'll go with that, sure.
Anyway, I don't know why the chef is here, but he's by far my favorite character in this book. He's my favorite thing in this book. I'll tell you why in a minute, but he is great. If the book had been all Swedish chef all the time, I would have loved this book. So while the meal prep is happening, rats have been sneaking in and they start sabotaging the friars. They're seen by Laertes, but he was driven mad earlier by the rain and says nothing.
Why are they messing with the kitchen?
So the sabotage causes an explosion. That's just the fire alarms off and causes all the humans to flee in panic.
Okay.
So I'm assuming this is like Rasferret A trying to attack the big people by like burning their building down, and B also trying to sow chaos as he prepares for his big battle against George.
So is he like directing the rats?
And not directly, like he sent Thresh out to go do this.
Okay, so.
But he's like, hey guys, go and attack on the big people or whatever by setting fire in the kitchen or something. I don't know. We never learned how this actually came about, this plan.
Okay.
So the explosion goes off, fire goes off, fire alarm goes off, humans start panicking, but the Swedish chef has been knocked unconscious by the explosion and is left behind as the sprites and the rats join battle. At the same time, lightning strikes the clock tower at exactly noon, freezing the hands at noon, and the wind picks up, and the dragon, remember the dragon parade's happening, gets pushed over, it's about to fall, but instead of falling, the dragon lands on its feet and starts moving on its own.
Shocking. The parade float comes alive.
I know. Even George predicted that when he was talking to Mr. Sunshine.
Even I predicted that in book 1 when you mentioned the dragon.
So more lightning strikes occur, and suddenly every human in Ithaca is compelled with a sudden urge to either go home and hide or fall asleep or both. Like they're magically compelled just to get out of the way and go make themselves scarce. And so the whole town, whole campus empties out. Meanwhile, the battle with the sprites and the rats is raging, and Hamlet finds himself squaring off with Laertes, because of course he is, who's mad and wants to kill him. Like he's gone literally mad. They fight, and they end up fighting near a garbage disposal, which Laertes falls into and is killed.
That's gross. Why were none of the other sprites affected by the rain?
I don't know. I don't know, Danielle. I don't have an answer for you.
It just seems like they're kind of an outdoor beings. You think that more of them would have been affected by the rain?
I think Laertes was already half mad from the death of his sister, Saffron,
Mm-hmm.
And was already like fighting Puck and fighting people. So I guess you sort of pushed him over the edge.
Sure, okay. Why not?
I don't buy it, but here we are. Hobart is also fighting Thresh, who has come back to finish the job, and he mortally wounds Hobart. At the same time, Hobart manages to stab Thresh and then knocks him in the garbage disposal, and both die.
So the garbage disposal. So Puck just turned on the garbage disposal.
It was always running. It's like this, the way it's described is like there's this trough of water flowing behind like the prep areas in the kitchen that goes into this garbage disposal, and as like the chefs would finish their work, they'd shove anything into that trough of flowing water, which would take it down the disposal and get rid of it.
Sure, why not?
I don't know, Danielle. That could be a real kitchen thing.
I'm sure it is. Why not?
So both die, and the loss of Hobart seems to demoralize the sprites because they've lost their leader.
I mean, he was in a coma all this time.
I know, right? But I guess his leadership in this moment was so important to them, they're demoralized. But luckily for them, the Swedish chef wakes up immediately and sees rats in his kitchen and screams, "Vermin in my kitchen?" And then, quote, "A meat tenderizer the size of Norway hung within easy reach. The Swede grabbed it, swung it once to test its weight, and blasted the nearest rat into Valhalla." Yeah, it's great. And then he leads the sprites. He's like, "Come on, little people, we got to fight." And he like leads them on this great battle against the rats, and he routs them all, and it turns the tide. I love him. He's the best.
I like that he knows that the sprites are the good guys, quote unquote.
Yeah, he's the best. He just grabs his giant meat cleaver, sees rats, doesn't think twice, just starts blasting them away, and like, "Let's do this. I'm here to fight." It's great. He's the best. There should be more Swedish chef in this book, less of everything else.
Less George, less Calliope.
Less George for sure. Less Calliope, more Ragnarok, more Swedish chef. I like to see them team up because that'd be cool.
That'd be fun.
So meanwhile, George is sitting at home waiting, and then he thinks to himself, it's time to go. And he gets up, starts heading up towards the hill.
I get annoyed that all of these characters have some kind of timeline in their brains. Yeah.
George obviously takes the spear with him, but he thinks to himself, it'd be cool to have something else. And he also grabs his kite to help him as a weapon for some reason and goes off to face the dragon.
I know when I go into battle, I really like to grab my kite as well.
It doesn't make any sense. It's just what George decides to do. Get his kite and his spear. He's off to fight the dragon.
That is very George.
Meanwhile, Rasferret is having a good old time up in the bell tower. He's killed Hobart. He lost Thresh, but that's, whatever. And only Stephen Titus George remains. And he'll face him soon enough. But in the meantime, Rasferret decides to have some fun by turning his attention downtown, where the only awake beings he finds are Hollister and Doubleday, the cops.
Why are they awake?
They have just been, through sheer force of will, Hollister has been keeping herself awake and slapping Doubleday and keeping him awake, and they managed to keep himself awake out of a sense of duty and willpower, I guess. I don't know.
I appreciate that, but okay.
And so Hollister has a premonition that it's out there and that she needs to go up to the hill. So she takes Doubleday.
I feel like we should just take shots every time somebody has a premonition.
Yeah, no, it's like 90% of the character motivation of the book is Hollister had a thought. We're going to just go to the hill. And so whatever's wrong, that's where it's coming from. I can feel it, can't you? And so they go to the hill to investigate. Meanwhile, the Rubbermaid comes back to life.
Oh, good. I missed the Rubbermaid.
Didn't we all? It's been kept in lockup in the police evidence locker and decides now's the time to bust out. So it kicks open the door and exits the police station after quickly grabbing like a police hat and putting it on to like wear jauntily.
It's another one of its lovely disguises, Sam.
Apparently it's enough for it. Apparently it's like plain dress up, Danielle. Let's not judge.
I was not judging.
So George is walking up through campus back towards the hill and he runs into Ragnarok. And they have a brief exchange of like, "Hey, Ragnarok, what are you doing?" It's like, "Just going about my business." And he's like, "What are you doing, George?" "No, it's my thing." And they say, "Cool, well, good luck out there." And they part ways.
Why is Ragnarok still awake?
Because he has a purpose, Danielle, in the story.
No, that's right. Forgot.
Yeah, he and Jack, they have to have their showdown. Also, meanwhile, Luther, he's back. He made it to campus.
Yay,
he's almost
perfect
home.
Timing.
As Luther makes it to campus, he finds what he always feared, which is Dragon waiting for him. He's like, "Dragon, you look like Rack." Dragon's like, "No, I'm very much alive. I'm going to murder the heck out of you."
I can't believe all these stories don't tie in together.
Yeah, right? And Luther's like, "You might kill me, but like, is there any honor in that? Like, that proved you to be a superior breed by doing that?" And they have this like sort of argument, and Dragon's like, "I'm well beyond that. Like, I killed masters. I killed this woman on my way here because I was hungry, and I killed a dog here because I'm hungry. Purebred or not, they're all beneath me now."
He killed a human and ate it?
Yeah.
That's a choice.
Well, I mean, it's not cannibalism, I guess.
I guess. Slightly better.
And then Luther's like, "Hey, where's Blackjack?" And Dragon's like, "Blackjack's dead. I'm sure of it." And Luther's like, "You're sure?" "Wait, you're not sure. I can feel that from you." And Dragon's like, doesn't matter. He fell into the river. He's not a good swimmer. He's a cat. And that gives Luther some hope about this. It makes Dragon very angry.
How would you like to live in a world where nobody can lie because everybody can feel that you're probably telling a lie?
Well, I mean, to be fair, the dogs do have psychic abilities, so that makes sense at least.
Sure, but there's also like multiple parts of the story where characters are like, don't lie, I can tell when you're lying.
No, if I lived in a world where no one could like lie, again, I made this clear past. I'm not saying that deceit and duplicity are good things, but lying is an important part of human society. Like, that is how, like, how are you doing today? I'm fine. That's a lie, but it's like part of the social structure we have here is we expect these sort of ritualistic things that responses to things, even if they're not necessarily 100% true. So if you took away everyone's ability to lie, society would absolutely collapse.
Yeah,
instantly.
But what if you were just lived in a society where people couldn't lie to begin with from birth on?
I do not want to live in that society. That sounds awful. I'm sure there are some dystopian like sci-fi novels that have that premise.
I'm sure.
So anyway, as they're arguing, they hear footsteps approaching them, and Dragon's suddenly like, hey, Luther, I know you won't fight me because you're a coward and you're a pacifist, but would you even try to stop me from killing someone else? Do you want to see me kill a master? I'm going to kill a master right now. You have to watch. And Luther gets very upset about that. And Dragon charges towards the sound of approaching footsteps, and Luther's like, no, and charges at Dragon, not sure what he's actually going to do about this. But as Dragon leaps for the throat of the thing he can't quite see in the fog and the rain, he gets grabbed in midair by a plastic hand. It's the Rubbermaid!
I hope the Rubbermaid kills Dragon.
Yeah, it does, right now. So the Rubbermaid grabs Dragon by the throat, starts throttling him.
Hilarious.
And eventually, he blacks out, and his neck is broken by the Rubbermaid, and Luther gets the heck out of there.
What was even the point of having Dragon there?
That silences me thinking, Daniel. I could not come up with an answer. What was the point of the entire Luther Blackjack story?
I don't know the answer to that either.
I mean, Luther did wake up George from when he was lying in the snow that one time. I'm sure Mr. Sunshine could have figured out another way to do that.
Yeah, there's like a whole plot about heaven that's just dismissed.
Yeah, I'm sure it's allegorical, and there's like parallels in here, and with me trimming things down, that nuance may be lost, but I also don't quite get it. And again, maybe I'm the idiot. Like, I'm not approaching this book in a scholarly way. I'm not trying to understand its themes. Like, I'm trying to summarize it for you. So I could absolutely be missing its hidden depths.
I think we should redo this book in a scholarly way, Sam.
Yeah, you can do that. I will. I've read it enough times, I think, now. So as Luther is about to run away, the Rubbermaid starts approaching him, and he's frozen in fear, and he suddenly hears a car coming close. It's Doubleday and Hollister, and Hollister sees the Rubbermaid and just guns it for it and smashes into it with the car. And hilariously, the Rubbermaid, instead of going flying, just grabs onto the hood of the car like in an action movie. He's like holding onto it and like crawling up the hood of the car, trying to smash its way into the windshield.
But if anything could do that, it would definitely be the Rubbermaid.
Oh yeah, it's great. It's the best. And Hollister's like swerving, trying to get the Rubbermaid off of it before it finally spins out and snatches into a van, knocking Doubleday out. He is unconscious, and Hollister does her best to try to escape the car. Like, the Rubbermaid smashes through the windshield, like tries to grab her, and she manages to escape through the door and grab her shotgun. And as the Rubbermaid approaches her, she blasts its face off and like melts its face with the shotgun blast.
Does it actually stop it? Because last time they shot it, didn't do anything.
It doesn't stop it immediately, but then she blasts its leg off and like knocks it over. And so eventually, after shooting it just a whole bunch of times, finally the Rubbermaid seems to like go out and the eyes go dark, and then Luther comes over and pees on it. So the end.
That makes me happy.
Yeah, and then Luther goes and makes friends with Hollister.
Oh, yay.
So that is the end of the Rubbermaid story.
We knew them well. Oh, Rubbermaid, we'll miss you.
I do have to correct one thing. Actually, Ragnarok gave George a lift on his motorcycle up the hill. So when they first encountered that George got a ride with Ragnarok, I didn't mention it earlier because I didn't think it was going to be important. I had to mention it now when it came back.
Okay.
And so also Ragnarok's motorcycle was somehow magically fixed.
He just magically fixed himself. He found it again and it was fixed.
Yeah, exactly. Because it had been smashed to pieces by Jack,
right.
But now it was magically fixed. So he could go and confront Jack and give George this ride.
And they're just along for the literal ride.
Exactly. And so once they get towards the hill, Ragnarok drops off George and then goes off on his own. That's
Perfect.
where they part.
Okay.
All right, finally to the chapter, St. George and the Dragon.
Yay. Is this the last chapter?
No.
Oh, okay.
Danielle, believe me, I feel you. I mean, it might be the last chapter. I don't remember, but there's a lot to it.
Okay, let's do
We're
it.
not quite near the end.
It's impressive since so much has happened.
So, the green dragon that spews fire and has, propane tanks or whatever to spew the fire in it has been growing steadily larger as George approaches. It's gotten bigger than was even originally built. It's been magically growing. George is like, hey, wait, this is totally unfair. Like, what the heck am I going to do against that thing? But Mr. Sunshine is unsympathetic and sort of parks himself in the clock tower to watch the shenanigans unfold.
What a tool.
I know, right? Meanwhile, Ragnarok has been searching for Jack. So as he's tooling around campus, slowly on his motorcycle at a slow speed, looking through the fog for Jack, suddenly a sledgehammer handle comes out and clotheslines him, knocking him off the motorcycle. It's Jack! They found each other. Yay!
Yay!
As Ragnarok is on the ground reaching for his mace, Jack swings the hammer down and smashes his left hand.
Uh-oh, that's not good.
And instead of finishing the job, he just starts laughing and walks away, retreating off into the dark.
He's like hit and run.
Yeah, he's like, let's have a little game first, partner, and like heads off into the fog after smashing his hand.
This is when you need the animated sex doll in the fog.
So, George has been fighting the dragon, not very effectively. He's getting his butt kicked because it's like breathing fire at him and tossing him around, just smacking with his tail. And if he stabs or something, it's just paper mache and canvas. Like, it doesn't hurt the dragon.
He should set it on fire.
With what?
I don't know, Sam. It's magic. Its own propane tanks. Like...
At the same time, Puck has been scrambling around trying to get back to the clock tower to see if he can save Zephyr, but he doesn't have his plane. Luckily, what does he find out in the quad but a spare kite just lying there?
Shocking. I knew the kite was good for something.
Yeah, so he picks up, starts flying off towards the clock tower somehow. I don't know why he can control the wind, but he does.
I was like, wait a minute.
So as George is fighting the dragon, eventually he realizes I can't hurt it. So he decides to try his writing without paper trick and like wills it so that like next time he stabs it, he thinks this must hurt you and like change reality. So now that when he stabs the dragon, it does hurt Rasferret, who's possessing it.
Ooh, change of pace.
However, this is not enough, and he's still getting his butt kicked, and he's about to be killed. And just as he's about to be, like, squeezed to death by the dragon, Hollister appears with her shotgun and blasts a hole in the dragon's wing, saving him. Mr. Sunshine is not happy about this, saying, "What sort of Deus Ex Machina crap is this?" As if he's one to talk about that kind of thing.
He didn't, like, realize the Hollister was coming up with the gun. He seems to know everything else is about to happen.
Also, like, you can't be one to complain about contrived, savings of people with what stuff you pull, man.
You tell him. Dear Mr. Sunshine.
But Mr. Sunshine does not want Hollister to muck up his climax, so he decides to take her out of the fight by having lightning strike right near her, blasting her off her feet and into unconsciousness.
Okay, you know what? Earlier he stopped her from getting murdered and then now decides that she's no longer needed for the story. That's just nonsense.
Well, she already did her part of the story. She stopped the Rubbermaid. That was her point of the story.
Sure. Well, then you should, like, have had her turn around and go the opposite direction when she was done.
I agree, Neil. The limits of his power, or the extent of it, is unclear. And then he thinks to himself, hey, George, for all your talents, I think you lack motivation. So then he magics it up so that Aurora's bed from the hospital appears with her in it, still unconscious, on the quad.
Oh my goodness, why?
I do not know, but here's the phrasing that is used, which I kind of love. A bed had materialized on the walk in front of Andrew D. White's statue, a hospital bed like a bier for the perfect sacrifice, and on it Aurora Borealis Smith, still locked in slumber, wreathed in enchantment, defenseless. So, there you go. Aurora Borealis Smith, ready for the plucking of a dragon, I guess.
Question, what is the point of her being passed out from this apple?
Motivation for George? But then again, he never actually promised George to bring Aurora back if he did win. So more unrequited love, like,
seems unnecessary.
It's the whole thing. Why bring her out here? Why make her unconscious? Like, I guess he wouldn't have been unhappy enough or like driven enough to fight the dragon if he was in a happy, stable relationship or something.
Sure. Okay.
I don't know. It just makes much sense as Calliope being like, I have to destroy you to drive you to greatness.
I wish it tied in better somehow.
Yeah, me too. Or if it does, maybe I just don't understand how it does, and that's my mistake. So George springs to the bed and scoops up Aurora before the dragon can burn her to death, and then he grabs his spear and he chucks it straight into the dragon's mouth, like right to the back of the throat, where it lodges itself against the gas tanks in there and sticks the valve so it can't breathe fire anymore. And then George has an idea. He finds that his kite is there, because apparently Puck took a different kite that happened to be on the quad.
Gosh, there's a lot of kites on this campus. It must be a popular sport in the 80s.
Luckily, Puck found a different kite, so George's kite's still there. And so he grabs his kite, and he takes this twine, the string, and he like throws it, and it loops itself around the spear, because he's using his like power again to make reality do what he wants. So he's like, I'm going to throw this, it's going to wrap itself around the spear, and it does. And then he throws the kite up into the air, and starts like, come on, like he's trying to curse lightning to strike the kite.
Is there a storm going on?
Oh yeah, there's been a storm going on for a while.
Okay.
Remember lightning strike Hollister?
I remember the storm. I just like wasn't sure if it was still happening because that felt like a really long time ago.
Yeah, no, it's still going on. So as the kite is flying up in the air and he's trying to call the lightning down, which I don't know how it would work because the kite is tied to a like string, not a metal wire, but I guess lightning could still travel down it, I guess. And he gets lucky. Lightning strikes the kite, and just as it does, ZZ Top, who has been unconscious under a bush, wakes up briefly enough to yell, Ben Franklin, before falling back asleep. The lightning strikes a kite, it travels down the string, into the spear, into the gas tank, and the whole dragon explodes. Kapooey. Gone.
See, I told you he could blow it up.
Meanwhile, Ragnarok is fighting Jack, like following him around trying to find him. He sidesteps a blow from Jack and gets underneath him and knocks him down, and they end up like tumbling into a cafe that's been abandoned, like a coffee shop on campus, down a couple of stairs into this lowered cafe, and they're fighting on the ground, and eventually Ragnarok manages to get Jack on his back. He grabs a sledgehammer and he swings it down hard and buries it into the concrete right next to Jack's head. Like, doesn't actually kill him.
Right.
And then he's like, surprise, Jack, I win. And then Jack passes out.
I mean, it's probably good that he didn't kill Jack, considering it would be murder.
And then he just sort of leaves the cafe with a smile on his face. And that's the end of the Jack Ragnarok story.
Well, for the moment, because I feel like Jack would come back at some point to try and get Ragnarok.
Nope.
Well, I mean, outside of this book, Sam.
Nope.
Does he die?
Nope. I mean, not now. Oh gosh, I have so much to get to, Danielle.
Okay, continue on.
So after the dragon explodes, everyone feels the tremor. Rasferret's troops are routed. They lose their will to fight. And finally, Zephyr is also safe up in the tower. She's been fighting off rats, trying to, save her life. And Puck zooms in on a completely different kite. And is like, hey, am I too late? How's it going? And I'm like, I hate these people. They should not be a couple.
So they fly off on the kite together?
Nope. He just flies up on the kite to the tower. Like, hey, I'm here to save you. After she's already been saved by, the routing of the dragon. So good effort, I guess. A for effort.
He tried.
So after the explosion, Luther comes loping up and starts barking and licking George's face to revive him because George was knocked unconscious by the explosion. And George and the dog have some happy kisses. And Mr. Sunshine says, the end. Told you it would be a good story, didn't I? And that's how this book ends, except for one last thing, Danielle. The next chapter, a kiss at daybreak.
It's like a fake end.
Yeah, so Mr. Sunshine says, here's the end of the story. And the book's like, oh, no. There's still more story.
Is it being controlled by Mr. Sunshine still?
I have no idea. I don't know what is in control of Mr. Sunshine, I'll be honest. It's the next morning, daybreak is broken, everyone sort of comes out of their magic slumber, and all the events of the previous day are wiped away, undone, magically as erased if they never happened.
Do the characters remember that they happened?
No.
Weird.
So, the dragon still burned to a crisp, but now everyone's like, oh, that was part of the parade. Part of the parade is you burn the dragon at the end of the parade. So, okay, that all went off without a hitch. The destruction of Ragnarok's house, completely undone. Aurora is awake now, wandering through campus.
Why is she awake? Just cause?
Yeah, she walks across the art quad, glowing literally with the light of her inner beauty or something.
Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Like, whatever. I get it. She's the princess. She's been saved by George. Yay. She can't find George, and she eventually finds him on the suspension bridge again, unconscious for whatever reason. And Luther is there too, and Luther smells her scent. Now she has the same heaven scent that suffused George. He's like, oh my gosh, another angel.
Okay, so George woke up when Luther licked him the first time, right?
Yeah, but then this is the next day. The magic.
For some reason, he's passed out on the suspension bridge.
Yeah, everything's been this has been like a reset button hit. Everything's been undone. Or maybe he didn't wake up when Luther licked him. I don't quite remember. Either way, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
So she kneels down beside George and starts petting his unconscious head. And she says, I love you.
Did she wake up? Sorry to interrupt. Did she wake up in a bed in the middle of the thing? Or did she wake up in the hospital?
No, unclear. She's just wandering through the quad and is magically drawn to where George is. And she kisses him to wake him up in a reversal of the Prince Charming Snow White trope.
Now I see what they did there.
Yes. Luther is so happy to see everyone awake, and then suddenly Blackjack appears after pulling himself up out of the river. He's alive!
Yay!
And Blackjack is even happy to see Luther, that he lets Luther lick him, even though he hates that kind of thing.
How cute. Match made in heaven. Fairly literally.
Yep. And no one remembers anything that happened in this last couple of days, or how George ended up outside on a bridge, or any of that. Maybe the dog remembers? I don't know, but the people certainly don't.
Okay.
Finally, Danielle, the epilogue. So this epilogue is given in the style of like an 80s movie, where it's like, all the characters, they come up screen, there's a little text, well, this is so-and-so went on to do this, and so-and-so went to do that. It's exactly what this is. Aurora Borealis Smith graduated college at the end of the school year, and George stood in the stands to cheer her on, and then they had a wedding later in the future, and they couldn't wait for that and whatever awaited them next. So they're all prepared for their bliss and happiness in the future.
Oh, good. I hope he can continue writing. I hope he's not too happy.
Yeah, exactly, right? Wouldn't that be a shame? George decides to be a free agent again and go traveling with Aurora instead of staying on as a writer-in-residence, stagnating in Cornell.
I like that there's no mention of the massive inner turmoil you would have finding out that you're being written by somebody.
You would, Danielle, but it's completely gone now because he forgot all of that.
Yeah,
Mrs. Sunshine erased it from his memory.
Thank goodness.
Right? How convenient. It's all a dream.
Does he remember Calliope?
Well, yes and no, in the sense that Calliope's memory was already started to fade from him when she left him. Like, she's already did that trick when she, like, all her stuff vanished from his presence. Like, any pictures of her vanished, any impression that she left behind vanished. Like, she already pulled this vanishing trick when she left.
Right.
So he remembers her as much as he did before this happened, I guess.
Well, he had a vague sense that his life might be written by somebody else then.
I don't know, Danielle. Maybe it's sort of just a vague sense of like mystical storytelling and not an actual suspicion.
Okay, sure.
So after the human graduation, the canine graduation went far less smoothly because there's so much tension between the mutts and the purebreds. And Blackjack and Luther, they stayed there forever on the hill until the day they died after living a long and happy life, part of the crusade to bring equality between the purebreds and the mutts. So they stayed behind to sort of act as activists with the other dogs.
I'm glad there was some sort of conclusion to the purebred, non-purebred nonsense.
Well, it doesn't actually conclude. They just stay to fight the good fight.
I know, but at least they like mention it. It's not just like something that's disappeared from the story since it was so prominent.
Yeah, here's a paragraph about it in the epilogue. You're welcome.
Better than nothing, Sam.
Yeah, I'll take it. The Bohemians scatter, so they all go their separate ways, with Lionheart and Miyoko in Europe to found a dynasty, whatever that means. ZZ Top ended up shearing sheep in Tierra del Fuego.
I'm pretty sure that's not how dynasties work.
That's what it says. Ragnarok, purged of the burden of his past, even though he didn't really know how that happened, roamed for a while and eventually settled in the Midwest, and he and Jinsei remained lifelong friends.
No, it's cute.
Late in August, on a particularly hot night, the Rho Alpha Tau building burned to the ground.
Oh no.
After one of the brothers inside nodded off while studying by candlelight for whatever reason.
Maybe the power had gone out, Sam.
He drunk himself to sleep and a candle was there and the house burned down. And even though the house burned down, Jack Barron had to suffer further indignity, and in the future, at some point, he came to a abrupt and untimely end. And that's all it says. He was not missed.
Who knows what happened?
All it says is he's removed from the stream of history one evening, like a character edited out of the last pages of a novel. The sprites lived on in secrecy as they always had. The romance of Zephyr and Puck continued to be a roller coaster, so clearly that whole reset the relationship thing did not work.
Shocking, really?
And you know what happened to Rasferret the Grub, Danielle?
He was locked in a box.
Nope. Nobody knows. He simply faded away. Maybe he's still out there. Maybe he died. Unclear.
He's in Fool on the Hill Part 2.
Fool on the Hill Part 2. Rasferret's Revenge.
Foolier and
Rasferret and Thresh for president. And so the book ends with the final scene of George and Aurora flying a kite on the hill just before setting off on their journeys.
The end.
The end.
You made it, Sam.
We made it, Danielle.
We made it, Sam.
We made it.
Good job. What a weird freaking book.
Do you like how none of the stories actually interacted with each other really that much? It felt, again, like there were so many different stories going on. Like, none of the stories were actually, like, bad in and of themselves, but by setting them up against each other and then not delivering on a payoff for them all, like how they all like intertwined, it diminished them all.
It was weird because the reason why that's weird, it's fine to have multiple stories going in a book that are unrelated. There are stories like that. What's weird is that they set it up to make it seem like they were all going to like to an apex
there are all
at
these
the
parallels,
same time.
yeah.
And then it's not. And I don't understand why you would write something that way.
You go through all the effort to set up all these parallels and interlinkings and just say, no, that doesn't need to happen.
Crazy.
It's weird. Yeah. So what do you think of Fool on the Hill, Danielle? Is it one you want to pick up and read?
No, I feel like I got a really good sense of it from you, Sam.
Like I said, I got to be fair. Don't judge a book by its podcast, as you so wisely said.
Mm-hmm.
Again, this book has a very good atmosphere. Like, it has a very strong voice and strong tone. So, it's definitely something that is worthwhile.
No, it's super creative.
Yeah. And very interesting. I personally, and this is just my personal preference, wish that there was more character growth and character-driven stuff than these weird external plot-driving things for the characters. And also, I really, the whole framework with Mr. Sunshine didn't really work for me.
Right. Yeah, the characters are really secondary to the story.
Exactly. Because there's some really interesting characters there, I think. Like the whole dog story kind of reminded me of like Watership Down. There could have been this weird animal society stuff you could do, like a whole book of that. It would be interesting too.
Yeah, and the characters that he put like more depth into, like Ragnarok,
were
like not main characters. Like, we knew more about Ragnarok than we knew about George.
Yeah.
And George is supposedly the main character of the story.
Yeah. Weird choices. I do enjoy, in a weird way, like all the little vignettes he throws in there, like the weird explanations for like the sex cloud or the weird like scenes that don't seem like directly tied into the story, but like are there just to sort of set up something else. I think they're kind of fun to have. Like, they're like, oh, what weird thing? I'm going to read in this chapter.
Right. Yeah, he definitely does a lot of that.
Also, more Swedish Chef, please.
He'll come back in the sequel. It'll be fine.
All right. Well, I think we definitely need to wrap it up there.
Yeah, move on to bigger. Well, it won't be bigger. I'm not even sure it'll be better.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear what you bring me. We made it through this. Good job, you. Good job, audience. Good job, me, for getting through this.
Sam.
It was definitely rough going at times, but we made it.
I'm proud of us.
So you out there, if you have suggestions for what massive thing you want me to do next, which I probably won't do because I just need a break, but you can send them my way anyway. I'd be happy to hear those suggestions.
That makes people want to write us.
Look, sometimes you just want to shout into the void. Maybe you can send me a bunch of unrelated stories I can read together, pretend they're another book.
Oh my gosh, that would be crazy.
If you want to do that, you can send that to us at bookretorts.com.
You can also tweet, Instagram, or Facebook us at bookretorts. All
right, so join us next time for something that is not done by me for once.
Yay!
Until then, bye.
Take care, everybody.
I think people are sick of hearing my voice at this point.
I don't know. It depends on whether or not they like listening to you to begin with.
That's a fair point.